911, what's your emergency? We just been robbed.
Much has been said about Nasser El Sonbaty. To some, he was a professor, a brilliant mind in a world of brute strength, an uncrowned Mr. Olympia and one of the first true mass monsters.
Nicest guy ever.
He had the weirdest personality.
He was a very funny guy.
He happened to be a very intelligent man.
Incredibly intelligent.
Very sensitive.
To others, he was arrogant, openly critical, and willing to push his body to dangerous extremes.
Like any athlete is going to do anything they can to win.
Nasser was full of stuff, man.
He didn't really respect his competitor.
I don't admire anyone.
He made fun of everybody.
I found him to be the kind of guy that would be smiling in your face and stab you in the back.
Both views are partially true, but neither tells the full story.
Nasser El Sonbaty.
Nasser El Sonbaty.
I was actually crying because on stage I didn't want to cry.
Nasser should have won.
He should have won that day.
You should have won that, Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, I thought he should have won easy.
I think you shouldn't get obsessed with bodybuilding.
On March 20th, 2013, news broke that Nasser El Sonbaty has passed away at just 47 years old, leaving behind unanswered questions. What happened? Who was this man? And why does his story still echo in the halls of bodybuilding history?
I had seen his blood work 6 months before that, and it was pretty good.
I still don't know what it is.
He was calling out like a bunch of people, a lot of stuff on some ex-judges that are no longer affiliated.
This is the story of Nasser El Sonbaty.
Don't tell anyone about the secret. Don't tell anyone.
Nasser's actually videotaping this event right now. And Nasser, you're from?
I was born in Germany actually, and but my father's from Egypt and my mother's from Bosnia.
In the heart of Stuttgart, Germany on October 15, 1965, Nasser El Sonbaty was born. He was the son of an Egyptian father and a Yugoslavian mother from Bosnia. His family's story was never a simple one. They had immigrated from Yugoslavia, which at the time was a communist federation. The country no longer exists today, as it dissolved in the early 1990s, giving rise to several independent nations. Nasser grew up in a working-class family with 2 sisters and 2 brothers. As a child, he has the natural ability to think deeply and question the norms around him. He was intelligent, curious, and most importantly, honest.
Very sensitive.
But life wasn't always easy. He struggled with his identity, trying to balance the expectations of 3 different cultures while facing societal prejudice. Nasser never intended on becoming a bodybuilder. It happened by accident. He only began lifting at the age of 17 years old to get his legs stronger for soccer.
I actually started training 83, 84. My body weight was about 85 kilos when I started training.
Young Nasser never idealized anyone in bodybuilding. He was never captivated by the legends of the sport, not even Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I don't admire anyone.
In fact, when asked about Arnold, Nasser said he never liked his physique. He criticized Arnold for having weak legs, droppy shoulders, and a huge waist.
Joe, let me talk to him, kid. You.
Encouraged by peers who saw potential in his developing physique, Nasser eventually decided to test the waters of competitive bodybuilding. In 1985, he entered his first competition, a stage show, where he placed 6th. Despite not winning, he was told by the judges that he had the best abs among the junior contestants, and that gave him more confidence and motivation to continue.
At the age of 22, he began using steroids. Nasser explained that it's a natural progression for pro bodybuilding, and he said everybody does it, but no one says it, and that's why he's not embarrassed to admit it.
At home, Nasser's mom always supported whatever he chose to do, but his dad, who was an engineer at Mercedes-Benz, didn't like this sport. He saw bodybuilders as dumb, narcissistic people. To him, it was a waste of time, energy, and money. He was particularly very concerned about Nasser's grades at school and university. He often reminded Nasser that the lower his academic qualifications are, the more likely people will boss him around. So education was always a top priority for Nasser. After high school, he attended the University of Augsburg in Germany in May 1985, where he stayed for 7.5 years. He studied history, sociology, and political science during that time. At the same time, Nasser was still competing and struggling to earn his pro card. He didn't have anyone in Germany to teach him how to train or diet properly, and he did not have the money to afford anything like that either. To support himself financially, he had to work during semester breaks and even during the week sometimes. So studying, training, working, competing, and dieting all at the same time was incredibly difficult. It took a lot of willpower, energy, and persistence, not to mention the incredible difficulty and risks, including the illegal challenges of getting access to steroids at the time. In 1990, after 13 amateur shows, Nasser finally earned his IFBB pro card and competed in his first pro show at the Finland Grand Prix in Helsinki, where he placed 8th.
I turned 1990 pro after I won a couple of times the Mr. Yugoslavia contest, and I came in my first pro show in 8th place.
and the winner of this show was at that time Momo Benaziza, and we've been straight competing actually every year.
During this time, Nasser also tied the knot and got married to his girlfriend Bridget. However, turning pro didn't lead to any immediate rewards. No money, no sponsor.
And I'll tell you, the first time I met him, it was around 1990. He competed in a pro bodybuilding show called Night of the Champions in New York. He didn't place. In fact, he told me to call him Jimmy. I don't know why. So, he's sitting on the bench. I say, hey, Jimmy, how you doing? You have a lot of potential, I said. He said, Jerry, listen to me. He says, and within 3 years, I'm going to be one of the top professional bodybuilders in the world.
Over this period, Nasser was traveling back and forth between Germany and the USA, facing financial struggles to keep up with bodybuilding. He urgently needed money and understood that to attract sponsors, he had to work even harder.
The first couple of years was pretty difficult as a pro, so I didn't place really good, and I thought 93, after being for 4 years in the pro ranks, if I won't qualify for the Olympia, I definitely will quit bodybuilding.
It took him 3 more years as a pro to finally earn a Mr. Olympia qualification. This came after placing third behind Flex Wheeler and Vince Taylor in the 1993 Germany Grand Prix, and then later taking second at the 1994 Night of the Champions in New York City, which was his best professional placing at this point of his career.
I qualified 93, but didn't do the Olympia because I wanted to lose weight, so my physique is improving. And then the following year in 94, I qualified in Europe twice.
Actually, in off-season, I'm really 320 pounds. I've done 3 times aerobics. In spring this year, I have overdone it, and I have made the experience that if you don't do it, you look very bad, you are not sharp.
In his first Olympia, Nasser came in a respectable 7th place, even though he beated out the likes of Andreas Munzer, Samir Banout, and a young Ronnie Coleman. He still didn't get any contract offers. Competing against legends like Dorian Yates and Kevin Levrone made him realize that he needed more than just size. He needed more than a good physique to get to the top. This video is sponsored by
absolutely nobody!
So, if you like it, do us a favor, drop a like, leave a comment, and that's all we ask. Back to the story. Finally, after spending a couple more expensive months in California, Nasser got to talk to Joe Weider, who offered and gave him a 1-year contract. Joe was the most helpful person in Nasser's career as a bodybuilder and the only one who saw potential in him. Receiving a Weider contract gave Nasser the opportunity to finally make the transition from living in Germany to California to focus entirely on bodybuilding.
So what can you say, It's great living in California.
I moved here in Southern California. I think California is a very good place to train, but people should always keep in mind that California doesn't create a champion, and it's not just by moving that you become a great bodybuilder. You have to be before a great bodybuilder. And if you're a good bodybuilder, California will make out of you a better bodybuilder.
And it paid off. Nasser's physical transformation to one of the largest bodybuilders of his time didn't happen overnight. Starting at 187 pounds, he gradually worked his way up to over 300 pounds in the off-season, with most of those gains occurring between 1994 and 1995.
So 95 was like my breakthrough year, but he was massive, and I couldn't believe how big he was, number one, and number two, how big he was that far out from the show.
Mr. J. Cutler, are you ready for the Terminator workout? I'm definitely ready. I meet you in 2.5 minutes, please, downstairs. Okay? Thank you. I think he is a good bodybuilder, but he has to prove it to me that he can keep up with me.
Since I've been working out, I gained actually 65 kilos.
He went from being an average bodybuilder to a mass monster, and everyone was in shock at what was coming. Nasser went on to place in the top 3 in 5 out of 6 shows during his European tour. He then won his first major title at the 1995 Houston Pro, followed by a victory at the Night of the Champions.
I won the Night of Champions 95. Which is the 3rd highest title in bodybuilding.
His momentum didn't stop there. He placed 3rd at the 1995 Mr. Olympia, beating a lot of experienced bodybuilders.
I moved over here to the States. I have better possibilities to train, to work out here. And the other guys made also a lot of improvement. Especially Dorian Yates was the first, and everybody's following him now in size and also in quality.
Finally, Nasser's bodybuilding journey started to pay off.
You want to see a freak? Check out this guy, Nasser El Sonbaty. This guy's a freak.
You know, Mitz, I actually didn't want to take my clothes off, but because I like you, I did it. So you are the very first guy, and you can write this down, for whom I took the clothes off until almost the underwear, So I hope that all Mr. Olympia competitors eat a lot of cheesecake, a lot of French fries, a lot of hamburgers like special friends of mine, and please in front of the show and not afterwards. I would really appreciate this.
Nasser El Sonbaty.
Nasser's most memorable moment of his career came in 1996 Mr. Olympia in Chicago, where he placed third once again.
Nasser looked out of this freaking world. This is the best Nasser I've ever seen.
This time, however, he received a standing ovation from the fans who felt that Nasser was better than Shawn Ray and should have been placed second or even first.
Nasser El Sonbaty.
So Shawn Ray got second, and he was a lot smaller, and Nasser got third. But I didn't understand how Shawn Ray, being as little as he was in the middle of those two monsters.
But what followed was even worse. Nasser was disqualified due to the use of diuretics, losing his official placement. To make matters even worse, he had to return his well-deserved prize money of $35,000, money he truly needed at the time.
I do remember talking to the guys. Everybody was in panic, especially this announcement of a possible blood test.
These guys, like any athlete, is going to do anything they can to win. So I said to the Weiders, look, we got a diuretic test. We got to protect them from themselves.
You could tell people had issues. They were a little bit either lighter or not as hard. Dorian was very hard, but he was clearly downsized. But Nasser took the diuretics. He's like, I don't care, because there was an agreement between Pro League and us athletes that if you don't pass the test, we will take the money away from you, but you keep your placing. Nobody will find out. You will just not get the money. So Nasser, smart as he was, he said, I don't care about the money. I want to win the Mr. Olympia. So we all went to the athletes meeting. Wayne DeMilia stood up and said, well, actually, we can't quite do that the way we planned. It has to go public, and you will not just lose your money. You will use your ranking as well. Nasser jumped off his seat and was absolutely outraged. And Wayne said, why you have to worry? Did you take diuretics? That's not the point. The point is with an agreement. So on stage, I believe that was the reason why they put Shawn Ray as a buffer between Dorian and Nasser, because nobody was certain if Dorian will pass the test. Everybody was certain that Nasser will not pass the test. So they didn't want the first two to be disqualified. At the end, only Nasser failed the drug test.
Nasser believed this was unfair, especially when comparing his situation to others like Jay Cutler, who had the same issue in 2001, but later had his placement and prize money returned by the IFBB.
I'm definitely also convinced if I would have had a different name, a different background, and would have been NPC from beginning on, and would have been as outspoken as I sometimes am.
Nasser didn't back down. He wasn't the type to let things slide, and that boldness was a big part of his personality.
He had the weirdest personality.
Nasser was full of stuff, man.
Nasser El Sonbaty never really got on that well with him. Never did. I found him to be, what's the word in England? We say two-faced.
You can talk to
documentary on the road. It's luxury all the way, limousine.
Yes, women
all over the place. We have to fight them up.
Was there anything that happened that caused you to think is some way about him, or no?
Observations.
Oh, purely observations, but nothing that happened.
No.
Who's your hot hero in bodybuilding? Who do you admire the most?
I don't admire anyone.
Who do you admire in life?
Who do you want to beat most?
No, I don't want to be anyone. No, there's no cartoon character.
He didn't really respect his competitor.
He made fun of everybody.
Shawn Ray, Tiny, Dorian, Backzilla.
Do you have anything to say to someone trying to start out in bodybuilding, watching you, a fan?
No.
Okay, well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
He was one of those guys that genuinely was a good dude.
Nicest guy you ever want to meet. Nicest guy ever. One of my best friends.
He was a very funny guy.
He was like kind of a jokestery guy all the time.
It's exciting though, isn't it?
I would say it's exciting if you finish well. If you don't finish well, it's not exciting, really.
Well,
it can be depressing.
Yeah. I never, ever laughed as much as when I was with Nasser.
I'm happy that she didn't ask any weird stuff. Like it was asking Ronnie Coleman with spiders and monkeys. Today, no spiders and no monkeys. I show only my arm, okay? Some people even ask me about the shoe size of Shawn Ray.
He knew exactly how to find people's weaknesses.
I have the impression like I'm the prey here in the zoo. Some people think you are just a freak, a big piece of meat, and I really stared at you.
If something seemed wrong, Nasser spoke up. Whether it was about corruption or unfairness in bodybuilding, his sharp mind was always at work, and his sense of humor was just as sharp.
Like, he would be the guy that would walk into the store and walk out with, like, some dumbass hat. Like, he was that guy. But when you saw him do it, you're like, no way.
If I was, like, dating a girl, I would go to the bathroom. Nasser would, like, try to give him his phone number. All the time. Oh, I am Nasser El Sonbaty. I don't know why you were with that guy. I speak 8 languages. He is a drug monster. And
Always same.
Tell them I'm I'm not revealing too much. I will only show my arm. I will not show too much because you should come to the seminar, on Saturday and Sunday, but I will show them my arm.
A few moments later.
Okay, I take the shirt off.
So we were in Hawaii. It's like, we should hang out here for a little bit. And he goes, look at all the girls out here. And I'm like, you want to hang out here? And he goes, these are all transvestites. Let's see who picks him up. And so
due to his master's degree in political science, history and sociology, along with his ability to speak 7 languages, and the fact that he always wore glasses even in the gym, Nasser earned the nickname the Professor, where he might otherwise have been called Godzilla.
He was also very technical and data guy.
He happened to be a very intelligent man.
Real smart guy.
He had a photographic memory. He remembered every detail of every conversation he ever had.
You could tell the guy, Nasser, what do you know about the Spanish War? He could talk for 5 hours.
Everybody loved Nasser, even his haters. He's remembered most often now for the many funny, great stories involving him.
I went out to dinner with him. We sit down at this table and there's a bunch of pretty girls and he goes over there and he starts talking to them and then they come over and he convinces them that I'm his bodyguard. He's like, he goes, I know you wouldn't think that I need a bodyguard because I'm so big, but this guy right here, he knows jiu-jitsu, he's a ninja, and this and that.
He would take stuff personal. You know, he would call me up. I mean, just out of the blue. He'd be like, yes, Chad, how was your day? And I go, it's good. He goes, well, yes, I was at the gym today and I was doing my cardio today. And then this businessman comes in and there's 20 treadmills next to me. I'm the only one on the treadmill. Of course, he comes in and gets on the treadmill directly next to me. So what do you do? He goes, I'm a bodybuilder. Do you train hard for a show right now? And he goes, yes, I always train hard. Are you getting ready for a show? Yes. So when will you really start training hard? He looks at it and he goes, what do you do? I'm an attorney. When do you start working really hard for your client? I do not understand what you mean. I said, what did he say? He said nothing. He went and got on the other treadmill. Like, he goes, yes, can you believe this? Like, I do not train hard every day. This idiot.
It's like it's so personal.
The thing about Nasser, you put food in front of him, especially when you had to diet for a show. If you put something in front of him, it's hard for him to not eat it.
I don't love the diet because the diet is very, very exhausting. It's very, very demanding. And
don't ever order a drink. If you order soda, order it hot. Because the soda is already cold. Don't have it with ice.
You were such a particular person.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone about the secret. Don't tell anyone.
He referred to his ex-friend Milos Sarcev as DCM, which stood for Delusional Clown Milo. Even though they were once close friends, he didn't hold back. He said in an interview, everything about Milo is all art. He's a great BS artist. There are 2 kinds of friends, real friends and fake friends. He belongs to the last group.
Milos told a story. Nasser invited him to dinner with his mother. So they're eating dinner and Nasser leans over to Milos. He goes, ask my mother if one woman is enough for a man. Milos says, I'm not going to ask your mother that. He said, no, ask my mother. You know, he had that smirk on his face, Nasser. Milos, ask my mother. So Milos asked her in Serbian, and she goes, oh, for my Nasser? No, he needs many women. No one woman is enough for Nasser.
He dubbed Shawn Ray Chihuahua Ray. He described him as a man with a Napoleon complex. For the Canadian bodybuilder Paul Dillett, he settled on the derisive name The Great Plains because of all the wide open spaces in his physique. The attacks only got more personal. He went on to call his friend Dave Palumbo Jumbo Palumbo. Nasser joked that Dave's long, floppy toes and gigantic feet made him look like he was wearing built-in flippers.
But you know, I knew who Nasser was. I didn't care about it.
Nasser added, his feet are so big you'd think he could swim across the Pacific Ocean if bodybuilding didn't work out. When you watch him walking, then you can see that his huge feet almost hit his gigantic butt with each step. Palumbo's butt is even bigger than Flex Wheeler's butt when he was remotely in off-season condition and being attacked by ninjas. Speaking about the ninja story, in 1997, all eyes were on Flex Wheeler, the favorite to dethrone Dorian Yates. But just 48 hours before the competition, Flex arrived at the host hotel with his left forearm and hand bandaged. Says that he will not be able to compete, claiming that 6 days prior, some violent people dressed as ninjas had injured him. However, this has left the spot for Kevin Levrone and Shawn Ray, but no one expected what the professor would bring to that stage, leading to one of the most talked about moments in bodybuilding, and perhaps the biggest robbery in the sport's history.
I think that Dorian Yates, if he doesn't show up in best condition ever, he won't be the winner this year. He's beatable, he's not invincible, he's just a human being like I am and the others are. If he's not ready, he can be defeated this year. Ripped to the bones, back ripped, chest ripped, abs ripped. Thank you.
Dorian was clearly a mess.
I was definitely not at my best. I had the tricep injury going into that contest.
Dorian had a torn bicep, torn hamstring. He had so many things wrong with him.
He had a torn up left bicep, a freshly torn left triceps, and apparently 2 quad tears.
Dorian Yates had been battling serious arm injuries, including a torn bicep and triceps. Was in no shape to compete. His physique was off, his waist was larger than usual, his proportions were off, and his symmetry was compromised. Many even questioned whether he should have been allowed to compete at all.
You get one injury, it's like throws off the balance. Maybe it was the time for me to do my last contest.
While Nasser, on the other hand, brought the shape of his life that day.
I'm striated more than ever. My back developed more. I have more separation, more quality.
His conditioning was insane, his muscles were round and full, and his waist was perfectly tapered. He was better than Dorian Yates in almost every aspect. Better symmetry, a more proportional frame, tighter abs, and sharper details.
I'm telling you that Nasser beat him in every pose.
He beat Dorian not only from the front, but the back.
Look at the pecs, the shoulders, the legs. The arms go without saying. They're all bigger and fuller on Nasser El Sonbaty. Dorian's front double bicep here may very well be the worst single pose of any Mr. Olympia in history.
Nasser was a true mass monster, and his physique stood out in almost every way. He was clearly the winner, but somehow he didn't.
Nasser El Sonbaty!
When the results were announced and Dorian was declared the winner, Nasser was shocked. You could see it in his face. Everyone in the crowd and many fans watching felt Nasser should have won that Olympia.
Never really understood how Dorian Yates really won by looking at pictures in the books.
Nasser should have won.
He should have won that night.
He should have won that Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, I thought he should have won easy.
And Nasser was very good. Some people think she should have won.
And to tell you the truth, I was actually crying because on stage I didn't want to cry because I felt completely robbed. And then I heard all these yes, Nasser looked good, but Dorian beat him from the back. The answer is, didn't I beat him from the front and from the side and from the other side? Besides that, from the back you see also the shoulders and the legs.
You could feel that all the hard work Nasser had put in, all the sacrifices, the hours in the gym was all for that moment. And yet, it didn't happen. Why?
So it works always good out if you know people and you talk to people and you invite people to your house and make your phone calls. And I was never one of these guys.
Think that Dorian should have won 97?
Milos, why you fuck with me? Why you fuck with me? It was very close, but Dorian won. Stop it.
The controversy surrounding Nasser continued in 1997, when he lost the Arnold Classic to Flex Wheeler, sparking further debate.
Nasser El Sonbaty. Nasser El Sonbaty, second place, $45,000.
And one should give credit also, of course, to Nasser El Sonbaty, who was a fierce competitor, who was really in his best shape ever. And I think that we will hear a lot from him in the future.
It didn't stop there. Another controversy followed when Nasser placed second to Kiven Levrone at the British Grand Prix, leaving many to question the results once again.
You shouldn't get obsessed with bodybuilding. You should do something else. You should do something for your brain.
Those losses had a deep psychological impact on Nasser and he turned his world upside down. There was a story published by Muscular Development magazine, though it was later removed, that claimed Nasser spent 24 hours in a mental hospital just 2 months after his loss to Dorian Yates. According to the story, Nasser had been invited to guest pose in Ukraine, but when he arrived, instead of staying at the hotel, he was driven far into the Ukrainian countryside, away from the capital, where he found himself in a mental hospital.
I don't need to hear that poor Nasser, poor this, poor that. I'm just doing it and I choose it and I like in bodybuilding everything.
If you concentrate solely on your career, you can get a long way in your career. That's a strategy that a minority of men preferentially do. That's all they do. They work like 70, 80 hours a week. They go flat out on their career. They're staking everything on the small probability of exceptional status in a narrow domain. But it's hard on them. They don't have a life. It's very difficult for them to have a family. They don't know how to take any leisure activity. Like they get very one-dimensional.
Because bodybuilding is a lonely sport. You're on yourself most of the time, especially when you're in the gym.
It may be that unidimensionality is the price you have to pay to be exceptional at one thing. You're smart, you're dedicated, you're unidimensional, and that's how you get to beat all the other people who are doing that. It's the only way. But the problem is you don't get a life.
Despite these setbacks, Nasser kept pushing forward in his career and believed he could have won the Mr. Olympia title after Dorian's retirement. But then, out of nowhere, a man named Ronnie Coleman appeared and shocked everyone by taking the title, while Nasser finished in the third place.
I wanted for sure win the Olympia, but I really didn't have the belief they would give it to me, regardless how I would be looking.
Nasser finally achieved the biggest victories of his career, winning the 1999 Arnold Classic.
I won the Arnold's Classic after 2 attempts.
However, it came too late. He had always carried the bitterness of the missed Mr. Olympia opportunity and the sense of betrayal that would never fully heal. Even though he continued on competing, Nasser was never the same.
Nasser was really never the same after that. He just couldn't beat these genetic freaks. It was an era of like shape, symmetry, and size.
So I think my physique was somehow at the wrong time, at the wrong place.
By then, he was no longer chasing titles, but simply finishing the chapter on his own terms. The passion that once fueled him was gone. His motivation has faded, and his last shows felt more like a man doing his job that he had grown to hate.
I think he truly believed that there is a way for him to win the Olympia. He just couldn't stop. He was never looking at his body and saying, I'm not good enough anymore.
Shortly after the 2001 Olympia, while Nasser was guest posing in Germany, his wife called him and asked for a divorce. Documents later surfaced online claiming the cause was domestic violence. While Nasser returned to his home in San Diego with his mother, he found police waiting at the door. They handed him a restraining order forbidding him from coming within 90 yards of his wife. To make matters worse, Nasser had to pay $70,000 in compensation for his beloved dog Sato.
And he called me up one day and he said, Jerry, don't believe the stories that are going around. I said, what story? He says, oh, you're going to hear stories of how I beat up my wife and this and that. And, I said, well, what happened? It's between you and me, just for curiosity. He says, she cleaned me out, Jerry. She says, I went on a tour. I came back and everything was gone. My bank account, my furniture, everything.
But even then, Nasser didn't speak ill of his wife. Instead, he said, my former wife wrote down and counted my calories. I don't know anyone who would do that. He acknowledged her efforts and said she deserved the money for all she had done for him. In the end, the abuse charges were dropped because there was no evidence to support them, and the divorce was finalized.
This stuff about him being extremely wealthy, I don't know. I never knew that. He didn't drive like fancy cars or anything like that.
For as long as I knew him, he drove around in this beat up Ford Probe. I'm like, dude, you can barely fit in this thing. And he goes, I do not need these fancy cars. I do not need this.
In 2003, Nasser suffered from a staph infection in his shoulder which nearly cost him his life. He was in the hospital for a long time and needed several operations to rectify the issue.
In 2003, I had basically injury. I had to go to hospital because of the staph infection.
In late 2006, Nasser went to Germany for a series of surgeries, which included removing birthmarks, fixing a hernia, and addressing scar tissue on his left lat. Those widely shared pictures often linked to his last years were taken during this time, not before his passing. For nearly 2 months, Nasser was confined to bed at his parents' home in Germany, relying on their care. He described the experience as paralyzing and emotionally draining, compounded by the harsh German winter and the struggle of losing weight and muscle.
I lost my job. Actually, I didn't lose it. It lost me. I'm overeducated, underskilled. Maybe it's the other way around, I forget. I'm not economically viable.
After 25 years as a bodybuilder, Nasser grew tired of bodybuilding world and stepped away from the spotlight for years. He said, my mental development is just limited to bodybuilding. My mother didn't give birth to me so I could spend my entire life on stage, hitting the side chest pose.
Unfortunately, when he stopped competing, he became very bitter with the sport.
He became kind of angry toward everything.
I don't know if he felt like he should have been able to go longer.
Sometimes sooner or later, your motivation or your devotion is somehow turning an obsession. I don't like to be an obsessed bodybuilder who competes 20 plus more years, and I competed so far 21 years. So I think sometime sooner or later it should be an end.
In 2013, during a visit to his sick father in Egypt, Nasser died in his sleep on March 20th, 2013, at only 47 years old. The cause of Nasser El Sonbaty's death remains a mystery, with no confirmed answers.
I still don't know what it is. I heard he was walking down the street and got hit by a bus. Still to this day, don't really know his exact cause of death.
Over the years, 3 main theories have emerged, each painting a different picture of what might have led to his untimely passing. People close to him shared that his organs were failing, and in his final moments his body turned blue. He was reportedly waiting for a kidney transplant, but it never happened in time. They traveled to Egypt, which some believe was his way of saying goodbye to his family. While many point at kidney infection as the cause, that was never officially confirmed. Another theory which I personally find more compelling is that Nasser's money problems and personal struggles led to his death. After his divorce, Nasser was depressed. He lost most of his wealth and ended up selling his house in the US to move back to Egypt, where his family lived and the cost of living was more affordable. He even resorted to asking fans to pay just to spend time with him. Some say his physical health seemed fine, aside from back pain, which led him to use painkillers. Over time, he became addicted to them.
I had seen his blood work 6 months before that, and it was pretty good. The blood pressure and everything was good. Everything was pretty good.
On top of that, Nasser reportedly felt abandoned and betrayed by some of his old friends. just like Mike Mentzer. The pain of losing trust and losing the 1997 Olympia combined with his addiction and depression weighed heavily on him. Many believe that this mix of struggles ultimately led to his death. The final theory is perhaps the most controversial and feels more like a conspiracy theory. It suggests that Nasser was reportedly working on a tell-all book. He publicly said, "The book is coming and no one is safe." The book was rumored to expose the darker side of bodybuilding, including corruption, shady practices, and harsh criticism of officials, judges, and fellow competitors. Some believe that this made certain powerful people uncomfortable and speculate that Nasser's passing wasn't natural, but rather an attempt to silence him. However, this theory is hard to prove and remains highly disputed.
And there was some really crazy shit. He was calling out like a bunch of people, a lot of stuff on some ex-judges that are no longer affiliated. He had turned it in. Like somebody has it. Like it's out there somewhere probably.
This is not to say that Nasser El Sonbaty was a victim. He made choices that some might call reckless. He pushed his body to dangerous extremes, and his bold personality often divided opinions. But to define him by these alone is to miss the essence of the man.
I think he was too smart for his own good.
I don't even know why he was a bodybuilder.
And he probably should have been doing something else other than bodybuilding.
Could have been probably anything. I think would the guy have decided to work for Coca-Cola, he would have probably ended up owning the company.
Why he was so enamored with bodybuilding, I don't know. Maybe it was the ego thrill of it. Maybe he was, made fun of as a kid.
I don't know exactly why he ended up in bodybuilding, but the guy was really incredibly intelligent.
I'm in this sport not to become a millionaire, to become rich. I'm in this sport because I love the sport. I'm dedicated to the sport. I knew from beginning on I want to make as much income like other people in other sports. But my only target or goal, the goal is to place high enough and to prove to myself that I'm one of the best.
It's either this or that. Nasser is not here to tell his side, to defend himself, or to share the countless stories and laughs we've been robbed of. Gone too soon at just 47 years old, one can only imagine how much he would thrive in today's era of social media, where his humor and insights could have reached millions. In remembering Nasser, perhaps we owe him something more than just judgment. After all, his story, like all the great stories, is complex, human, and worth understanding.
I hope he's watching down laughing over there, because we did have some good times together. And Nasser, if you're watching down on us now, I thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It really helps out a lot. This was Gym Nation. Peace.